Hey everyone, welcome to the patch 5.0C jungle tier list. In here, I will be discussing the strongest meta junglers in the patch, up until the ones that are struggling. Take note that some of these champions can be placed higher or lower depending on three factors. Number 1 is mastery of the champion, number 2 is your team composition, and number 3 is the enemy team comp. With that, we'll start from the S plus tier going down the list. First would be Lee Sin. Even though this champion has gotten a nerf in the recent patch, this is almost negligible because the nerfs only affected this late game. Lee Sin specializes in the early game. If you're still able to get a snowball rolling, gank the enemy lanes, and help your team win the game, he can just close out games without getting to that late game phase. Next up is Hecarim, which is the most banned jungler right now. I have no idea why Riot hasn't touched this champion for so long. In fact, he has gotten indirect buffs with the Triforce Cleaver interaction, making it work together, as well as Shojin getting a 5% passive move speed buff. So if you have enough mastery on this champion, this could basically give you free wins. Last on the list, and very interestingly enough, is Kha'Zix. The reason why I placed him so high in the S plus tier, because in the current solo queue meta, no one wants to play tanks, everyone wants to play enchanter supports, carries, in which Kha'Zix can abuse. With the current Kha'Zix iteration going for the pure armor pen build, he can just one-shot all of those squishies and carry the game by himself. The only downside of this champion is when the entire enemy team picks tanks, then he would struggle a bit going down to the S tier. But this almost never happens in solo queue, and that is why he's still here in the S plus tier. Next, we go to the S tier. Vi, this is one of my biases. Super strong right now. One of the strongest Heartsteel, Titanic, Hydra users, with that combination giving you so much tankiness and damage at the same time. Vi can use this pretty well. She also has great early, mid, and late game scaling with this item combination. Lastly, she also can do everything in the game from tanking, bursting, and engaging. Personally, I would put her in S plus tier, but if people don't have enough mastery on her, this is more of a safe tier for her. Next up is Nautilus, which is almost the same thing as Vi. This is basically an AP Vi, and Vi is an AD Nautilus. They both do the same thing, really strong ganks, can engage by themselves, can tank, and has a lot of damage. The reason why I placed Nautilus so high is because, especially with the Hex Flash changes, Nautilus can make use of this going for Hex Flash auto attack instead of trying to hook every time to get close. Next on the list would be Talon, which is one of the fastest farming junglers right now. Even though his initial release was a bit weak, with enough practice and him getting some minor buffs, he has gotten to a really strong jungle position. Last patch, he has gotten a nerf on his passive when it comes to clearing, but that doesn't matter since he still clears pretty fast. With enough mastery of this champion and depending on the right matchups, there's also a possibility for Talon to go to the S plus tier. The only reason why I favored Kha'Zix over Talon is because Kha'Zix is a champion that can easily execute kills, while Talon, you have to be very creative when you go onto your opponent. Farming wise, of course, Talon farms way faster than his assassin counterpart, which is Kha'Zix. Then we go for Aatrox, still a solid champion even though he has gotten nerfs on his clear. Once he's able to get his items, gets a reset, he can just carry the game by himself. Then we go for Yone, the strongest hyper-scaling jungler right now. Once you're able to get 2 to 3 items, you could just carry the game by yourself. You have a lot of crowd control, initiation potential. All you need to do is to be able to farm properly, get out of the early game disaster, scale up, and win the game. Pantheon, I think I placed him a bit high. There's a possibility that he could go A tier, but Hex Flash helps him a lot as well with his ganks. Can one-shot anyone. His ultimate giving him massive scaling, making him useful even in the late game. Very comparable to Lee Sin. The only difference is that Pantheon is one-dimensional champion. If you're not able to get a good early game, then he's gonna struggle later on. Then we go to Riven, which is another flexible pick wherein you can go for multiple builds. You can go for pure damage, you can go bruiser, or even semi-tank. Pretty similar to Vi, but I prefer Vi, much easier to play, can do a lot more in team fights. Riven though has bigger carrying potential, so if you wanna play a more defensive jungler, Vi is your pick, but if you wanna play a more offensive jungler, Riven is your pick. Then we go for Eve. I still think she's a really strong pick, very annoying to play against. If you're able to position yourself well, you could easily punish the enemy laners. The only issue about her is that you're gonna be a bit reliant on your teammates. They have to be smart, get good lane priority, so that you don't fall behind. Last one would be Olaf. This is very team comp dependent. If the opponents have no dashes or have a lot of crowd control, then Olaf can excel, even putting him in S+ tier. But generally, if you blind pick Olaf, I think it's a possible S tier, and it can even fall on A tier if there's a lot of burst in the enemy team. Next tier that we go for is the A tier. Xin Zhao has the potential of going up here. A champion that can burst people or be tanky depending on what you want. Camille is also a very good contender for S. The only problem is that her early game is so weak, but once you're able to complete your Triforce Death Dance, then you should be a lot more effective. Shyvana has been S tier for a while, but she has dropped into A because the current jungle farming meta doesn't suit her. I've seen in solo queue a lot of games where people snowball and people just get tilted and just give up before you're able to scale. Wukong is an X factor for me because since his rework is gonna be this week, I don't wanna rate him too high or too low. I just wanna get more data on what's his situation once he gets reworked. Kane, a former S, I had to place him one step down. Very inconsistent champion depending on the team composition of the opponents. If they have a lot of melee, then he's gonna struggle. If they have a lot of range and squishy, then that's where he could shine the most. Jace, another solid jungler, could potentially be placed in S. I think he's the jungler with the strongest poke right now. Pretty decent clear, strong burst, and can farm fast as well. He has the potential of going S if the opponents have no sustain so that they can't regen from his burst. Gragas, pretty fun jungler to play. He can go a lot of builds. Very flexible champion. He's a solid A since he doesn't have that carrying capacity to be able to 1v9. Ramos, Hex Flash is really good on him right now. You could just go Hex Flash Taunt or even Q Hex Flash to have deadlier engages. But the issue with tank champions right now is that they can't carry by themselves. With that, he's still a solid A tier jungle. Could possibly be bumped to S if the opponent has no AP in their team. Echo, I think, is a stable jungle. He could pop off at times, and if he falls behind, then he's gonna struggle, which makes him perfect for this tier. Fiora, one of the hardest junglers to play due to the vital and parry, remains in a solid A tier. If you're a Fiora main, maybe she could be bumped to S, going with a Kraken Slayer. This would help her early game a lot more and make her more useful when it comes to team fights. Urgot, this is a bit of a personal bias, but I think he's A tier. He has really good clear, and with the buffs that he has gotten in the last few patches, this has made him such a scary champion to play against. Of course, Baron lane is his best lane right now. I think he's S+ or S tier in Baron lane, but when it comes to the jungle, of course, it's lowered a bit down. Volibear, I still think this guy is a solid champion. The only issue is that he gets kited pretty easily and out of the tower diving situations. If he's not able to do this, then he would be not as effective as you would want him to be. Gwen, another hyperscaler. Similar problem to Yone, but Yone has a lot of engage potential and can do a lot more early game, while Gwen has to sit back, pray that his team doesn't feed so that you could get to the late game and carry. Jarvan, a solid A tier, very reliant on team compositions. Even though he's flexible, he doesn't excel at anything at all. Morgana, another jungler that can farm pretty fast. Her clear got a nerf, but it doesn't matter. She could still clear, which is her specialty, and support her teammates well. Even though she doesn't have the hard carry potential, this would make her perfect in the A tier. Rengar, despite not being touched for a while, I still think this guy is a solid A. Even though he was from S before, he could go for a burst build or tanky build. Burst build can work, but the problem is when they have exhaust, this would deny his potential burst. The tanky build is also good, but with the hard steel, this makes the tanky build a bit weaker since Rengar wants to kite as much people with Sunder Visage. He can build hard steel, but it's not as effective compared to the other bruiser champions. Nunu, another tank, perfect for A tier. Similar both to Ramos, where they have strong ganks, good CC, very tanky, but they just don't have that carry potential and would need to rely on their teammates. Shen also, similar boat. I think this guy can go S. His only issue is that there's so much anti-shielding in the game right now. Not only do you have to worry about Serpent's Fang, you also need to worry about Trident, which AP champions can easily buy. Fidel is a very team comp dependent champion. If he has the perfect lineup with frontline against the enemy that has a lot of dive, this is a obviously S. But other than that situation, I think he's a decent A tier that can pop off at times. But sometimes he's also useless, especially when he's put behind. Lilia, another hyperscaler. Honestly, she could be placed in A+, if there's a A+ tier. Decent farm rate, can carry into the late game. Hex Flash buffs also make her more useful, allowing her to go for Hex Flash Q ulti to catch multiple targets. Zed gets better Zed jungle than mid right now. Good burst, but there are also clear weaknesses of this champion. If he gets exhausted or stasis, then this would reduce his efficiency, making him a clean A tier pick. Similar boat to Diana as another AP champion that bursts. Exhaust shut her down as well as anti-shield items. Warwick, a champion that's really good in low ranks. Since people like to fight all the time, he could make use of his second skill. But in the higher ranks, he's gonna struggle a bit because he's just gonna get either kited or bursted down by all of the damage in the game right now. This makes him a solid A pick. Then we go to Amumu, similar boat as Warwick. Strong at low ranks, struggles at high ranks, especially when people buy QSS. Needs a good team comp for him to pop off. Nila, steady A tier, can carry once she gets items. She's basically like an AD Gwen, wherein they're not as strong early game. They need to farm up before becoming useful. Master Yi, same as Amumu or Warwick, really strong at low ranks. If you want a hyper scaling jungler in lower ELO, then Master Yi is your best bet. Mundo Jungle has gotten some traction once Heartsteel was introduced, but ever since then, even though he has Heartsteel first item, there are times that he could carry, but there are times that he can't do anything because his whole team is already dead. B tier will go on a brief summary of these champions. Graves, even though he got buffed, he still has the same problem. He's weak early game, and then even though he's strong late game, he just gets outscaled by the likes of Gwen, Yone, even Nila. Yi can do better than Graves. Fizz got in a lot of nerfs. Before he was A, he had been brought down to B tier. If you're able to snowball early game, then there's no problem. Irelia, I think she's a decent jungle champion, but there are just so much other champions that can do what she does, but better. Like Sinjao, Camille, even Volibear can do much better. Jax, better for Baron lane than a jungle. His clear is kind of slow. Just pick Camille instead of Jax. You can do a lot more. Renekton jungle is viable, but same with Jax. Just pick him in the Baron lane. Samira, also a viable jungle, but you know what? Just put her in AD, where she could try to snowball. It's kind of hard to play Samira jungle. You need to depend on your teammate so that they could CC the opponents for you to unleash your combo. Set jungle was initially strong, but ever since the Heartsteel meta, much better Baron lane so that you could stack this item ASAP. Tryndamere, very coin flip. Either you get lucky with your crits, get an early game lead, and try to win from there, or do absolutely nothing, get behind, and just get kited into oblivion. Darius, I think, has potential to be A. I haven't tested this champion yet because Hex Flash is really good on him. Go for Hex Flash Hook or even Hex Flash Belt Hook. A lot of creative ways to use this champ, but the only issue with him is his clear speed, which does not get any faster as the game goes on. Last would be the C tier. These are just for fun champions. Kai'Sa, Kayle, Yasuo, all need scaling to become effective. Yasuo can do a lot more early, but you just need a comp to be built around these to work. Pyke also, you need early kills. Twitch, similar boat. If you don't get any early kills, then you're just dead. Leona is my personal pick for C tier jungle. I think she has potential using her. She has strong ganks. Well, her only problem is the clear speed. And speaking of clear speed, all of these champions have the same problem where their clear is really slow and you're super team dependent. With that, that's my jungle tier list for 5.0C. If you have any suggestions or reactions, feel free to comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this helped and you're able to climb a lot cleaner. Thanks for watching. That's it for me and peace out. Ciao, ciao. Bye.